Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Digital Health Entrepreneurship. On today's episode, we are joined by a special guest, West Shell III. We have to say the full name because it's amazing. And West leads the company Conversa. So we're going to learn a little bit about that. So West, thank you so much for joining the show today.
Oh, you're welcome. Nice to be here, Seth.
So, Wes, you are a digital health legend. Give us the 2 or 3 minute version of your background so everyone knows who's on the show.
Okay. Well, 5-time serial entrepreneur, so absolutely a glutton for punishment. 4 kids, 5 companies. I like to grow things, and taking companies public, net incentives to a $3 billion IPO. Sold a bunch of companies. My last company, Healthline, has become the largest consumer health publisher in the world, and bigger than WebMD. So 250 million people came to their sites last month. And they were just sold for $650 million. So they had I unfortunately had sold the company a couple of years before that, but to give you a sense of scale. So been running around both probably in healthcare for about 15 years, and been a CEO for over 30 years. So
Great. Thanks for the background. So tell us, what is Conversa for those that don't know?
We're a virtual care and communication platform. So essentially, we think of us as an intelligent chatbot that enables our large health system customers to monitor, engage, and manage various population scale. So we literally take this very kind of episodic, visit-centric care delivery model, and we allow the large health systems like Northwell and UCSF and others to really begin to do a much better job outreaching to patients based on their profile, what they need to hear in order for them to self-manage and to monitor those populations and do a better job interacting with them. So that's essentially what we do.
Yeah, really interesting. And then for CovidMD, we've put the Conversa stuff on the front end to kind of escalate to a telemedicine visit, although it took much longer than it should have. The engineer should have done it much faster, but that's fine. But anyway,
busy.
Sorry, what did you say?
You guys have been busy.
Yeah. But I guess I was curious. I mean, so how do you like when you work with these health systems, do they just say, here's our EMR data for 1 million patients and do them all, the Conversa, let's just call it chatbot. It's more than that, but or do they say, go to this specific patient population? How does it typically work?
Yeah, it's a good question. So essentially, things are changing rapidly. So a good pandemic has certainly kicked everybody's business model into gear. And so there's a clear now recognition and commitment at the C-suite level across the major health systems that they actually need to have a scalable virtual care platform in place. Having said that, we typically have a land and expand strategy. So we'll go into a major health system and they'll identify service lines with major pain points, chronic care management, post-discharge acute, oncology, what have you. And we'll focus in on that particular population. We'll deploy our platform, and then you'll see very quickly to spread across various service lines as they all recognize they need an enterprise-wide platform, but oftentimes they need a clinical leader to basically get a bit in their mouth and be able to start to really adopt this kind of approach. And so, we're excited about that. People like Northwell, for instance, we started with, kind of the post-acute discharge with Medicare Stars patients about 2.5 years ago. We're now over 15 different service lines where they're adopting us to manage what will ultimately be, a couple million patients. So.
Yeah, cool. So do they, what are the main metrics of success they're looking for? In some cases, is it that just deflecting easy questions that, maybe it's a waste of the doctor's time, or I guess,
no.
What is it?
Basically, we have a very disciplined approach where we go by service lines. We're developing the KPIs that are aligned with that particular service line. So It's all about driving ROI, whether it's financial incomes by reducing costs, like inbound and outbound calls, being able to scale the nurse navigators or care managers to be able to have a much larger patient panel that they can address, and most importantly, it's driving clinical outcomes. So we've got some phenomenal outcomes where we're reducing hospital readmissions by over 30%. We're reducing no-shows and cancellation for procedures by over 70%. So, the ability for our platform, and hopefully with a COVID MD as we integrate and start to bring that out in the marketplace, to just scale these operations and to be able to use the precious clinical resource when they're needed, and that's typically on an escalation to a patient that really needs it, and let them focus and operate at the top of their license as opposed to, as you say, working on things that may in fact not be where they really should be spending their time, like reaching out to COVID-19 patients by giving them their test results. We can do that automatically and communicate to them what their results, positive or negative, means and what they should do. You don't need a nurse on the phone doing that.
Right.
We've done that with Northwell's a great example where we've done that over 15,000 test results in the last 3 or 4 weeks. Literally helping getting nurses out of call centers so they wouldn't have to call those patients. So
right.
That's an example.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. You guys have any questions you want to ask Seth or Lee, the geniuses over there? Or should I just
Wes, I have a play one. Like, I pull the bank and it's trying to direct me to press numbers and stuff like that. I get angry. I'm like, operator, customer representative. Conversa is clearly not one of those yucky phone dial things, but it's kind of like the intelligent, chat box. And so, what do you do to keep people typing and clicking instead of getting a human on the phone? And I mean this playfully, not.
It's great question. We have a T-shirt that says "You had me at hello," and then we have 50 different ways to say hello. Okay, so we have behavioral science that we build into our conversation modules. We don't have this isn't like a live web chat. We do live web chat with a partner called Live Person, and we can escalate into a live web chat with a teleagent. But ours is really structured, automated conversation that are typically personalized to the individual patient. So we have enormously high levels of engagement because of the personalization we're able to do. And so we're data driven. So we know that you are a heart failure recovering from low back pain with 4 medications. So you're going to get a different conversation than another patient. And no 2 conversations are alike. No 2 patients are alike. So being able to keep people engaged, make it super simple to interface with the chatbot, if you will call it that. It's a lot more than that, but being able to actually have an automated conversation that recognizes who you are, recognizes your profile, and gives you information that's timely, that's relevant, that drives behavior. That's really what it's about.
You mentioned heart conditions there. When you have conversations with CEOs or considering employing Conversa with their solutions, the privacy issues that CEOs ask you, like they say, Wes, I'm really concerned about X, because this is a show that a lot of digital health entrepreneurs listen to. And just what are you hearing?
Well, you got to figure that stuff out at the front end. And the good news is we're treading on very solid ground, that people have been delivering health information services for decades and decades and decades. That's what Healthline did. That's what WebMD does. So kind of the secure, SaaS-based, HIPAA-compliant kind of component of any platform, you got to figure that stuff out at the beginning. So those conversations are actually fairly easy.
Yeah. I think a lot of people overestimate how difficult it is. But then when they ask you to do high trust, that's when you just want to kill yourself. But anyway.
That's expensive. We're in the process right now of getting certified for high trust, and it's a 9 to 12 month process. It's probably going to cost us almost $100,000. I mean, it's a lot.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah, it's just that's the next step above HIPAA for those that don't know.
Correct.
But okay, shifting to entrepreneurial questions. So we're going to try to get some gems of wisdom from you. So what would you say is the number one biggest mistake a digital health entrepreneur can make? Or you can do top three if it's easier.
What's the number one mistake you've made?
I mean, I think the number one mistake is trying to boil the ocean and trying to do too many things. We've got a highly fragmented industry that digital health can solve a lot of problems. Being able to focus on the problems that matter, that match the intellectual property that you built and kind of the value proposition that you've identified as kind of core to your business. You need to make sure that that product market fit resonates with customers. And another piece that people do is they pick a partner, an initial customer, do a bunch of trials. I won't mention names here. That make your product roadmap go off into a place that you're not going to be happy with in 12 to 18 months. So you need to stick to your vision and make sure that the choices you make and the partners that you pick and the people that you hire and the investors that you bring on, and importantly in the strategic framework of the business you're doing, is consistent with why you started the company to begin with. And not get taken off because some partner thinks you should go build this because that's what they want. That's maybe not consistent with what you as an entrepreneur originally thought. And you know, there's a lot of brilliant entrepreneurs that just have gotten off track because they followed the money and investor money. They followed the partner money, and that can lead you in a really dark spot.
Yeah, definitely. I was recently told, and apparently everybody knows this except me, but also strategy is deciding what not to do.
That's right.
Yeah, to your point about being focused, but
the hardest, I think it's one of the hardest things to do. Entrepreneurs are typically optimistic, they're aggressive, they're confident. Hopefully, I like to say, you've got, very committed beliefs, loosely held, as opposed to very committed beliefs, strongly held. In other words, data and information can hopefully allow you to kind of let go of some preconceived notions that you have. But being able to really listen to the market, listen to your team, and then make the decisions that make sense for you. That's true.
Yeah, definitely.
I'd love to ask you, because I feel like with every entrepreneur, there's these moments. Some are high moments, some are low moments, that I feel like when I've talked to people that are more experienced than I am, they kind of like make you. They're almost like a furnace, or they're these pivotal moments where you realize, like, okay, this was the moment where my CEO-ness went to another level. Could you like share one of those moments in your many years where maybe it was a hard decision you had to make, maybe it was an easy decision where you just feel like it took your leadership and kind of your career to the next level?
I'll actually, I mean, I'm not sure this is exactly going to answer your question, but a huge decision I made about 3 months ago was to promote my president to CEO. So I'm now executive chairman. And, I think the things you should always do as a CEO is you should serve people that you can, and hopefully you might find one smarter than you or more. And so I'd worked with Murray Brzezinski for probably 20 years. He's been president of 2 of my companies. And I realized that, for us to go where I wanted the company to go, I thought it was important to kind of have Murray take over as CEO. So I became executive chairman. I did this, by the way, the week COVID really hit the stock market. So he's now my wartime CEO, and he's doing an absolutely brilliant job. And he's doing things that I frankly wouldn't or couldn't do. And it's allowing me to look at long-term growth. I'm really about the partnership guy. So that's why I'm spearheading our conversations with Laurence, and our partnership with COVIDMD, with Deloitte, Siemens, with Salesforce. I mean, so, I'm going to be looking at international. So I couldn't find the time to do that really as CEO, and now I can. And the company's going to benefit as a result. A, because now I can focus on other things, but B, importantly, I've got the right guy in the job to help scale the company.
That sounds interesting. So maybe I should become executive chairman too. So is that more work or less work? I'm not sure.
Will become less work.
I see.
A little older than you are, and I think you've got a few scars to first endure, and you need to lose a little bit more hair.
Yeah, that's probably true. Probably true. I'm probably not up to that yet. Interesting. Yeah. It's been interesting, these job titles that I've given various people and realized, well, they're kind of doing something else. It's almost like having 3 CEOs, I feel like sometimes, like Brian, our CEO.
And I applaud, what you've just recently done. You recognize that, I can make one decision, and the company makes millions of dollars off it. So, if you focus on the big decisions, you focus on the big opportunities, and let your team manage the business, and also delegate responsibilities, you can have a lot more power in terms of being able to make sure that things that you can only do as CEO or executive chairman get done. Because if you don't do them, no one does.
Yeah, I sent a memo recently to everyone that was, I think you might have gotten it. It was like, the only things I do are fundraising,
right,
running the product meetings, large scale business development deals, and telling the C-suite what to do.
That's right.
Because sometimes I get into the weeds and I shouldn't, but
I read that I was applauding you. Okay. You should also add managing your board and advisors, and you need to improve and enlarge your board, by the way. And some independent directors, by the way. Get some real heavyweights on your board. That's pretty.
Yeah. I mean, right now it's just the wonderful doctors.
And then you've got your 300 investors / other part of your management team, but you should be bringing those in, and also looking at advisory boards that ultimately will help you grow the business in certain areas. And you've got a mosh pit going on, which is great. Ultimately, it becomes a little unruly. So at least that would be my take. I applaud you for. I told him that Laurence, that they were going to have a Harvard business case on of his investor group as a sounding board on building the business.
Hopefully it's a success story.
Yeah.
I just want to refer to it as the mosh pit from now on. We affectionately, respectfully refer to it as the advisory board, but the mosh pit.
Yeah. Do you have a positions?
So what did you say, Seth?
I said, do you have a mosh pit of 300 investors? Because Fruit Street does. That can be your new competitive advantage.
Yeah.
Well, we have to see how the story ends first before we know how good or bad the mosh pit was. But it looks like it's going well.
You are tapping into the wisdom of the community, and the question is, if you don't get overwhelmed, or they don't contaminate each other too much, then it's a healthy thing. And so it's creating a healthy.
Yeah, I mean, it's crowdsourced knowledge. Not every piece of information is going to be good, but sometimes there's a gem of wisdom, or even just like a helpful introduction that comes from it as well.
Yeah.
So,
where have you kind of traditionally gotten your counsel from as a CEO? Like, what has a support group around you looked like?
Well, the biggest is my board. So, I've always really focused on attracting and retaining a world-class board. And it starts with the investors. And so, you pick, you can't pick your family, but you can pick your board, and you need to be able to pick those investors. And you've got a different model because you've got a much broader group of investors, but everybody has money's green. And so picking investors that really are adding a lot of value strategically, and as a CEO that can mentor you and partner with you is critical. The other component is hiring independent board members, and I think you should have at least 2 independent board members, and you can attract some incredible. I've had the former U.S. Surgeon General on my board. I had I had the head of Coca-Cola, CMO of Coca-Cola when I was in a marketing company at Incentives. I mean, I've had some serious heavyweight folks on my board, and they, they give very sage counsel. And so when you're making big decisions of how you're structuring the company, how much money you're making, do we buy companies, when do we sell, there's so many governance issues that you have to deal with. Having the right people around the boardroom will accelerate your ability to grow the company, and you as an individual, as a CEO, will nurture and teach you to be able to be more effective in what you do.
Wes, can you please explain what an independent advisor or independent board member is? Is that someone who's not financially invested in the company, or is there a different categoristic?
No investment.
I have a question about it because I struggle with one. Don't you ever feel though that perhaps their advice is neutral, which is good, but don't you ever feel like, I don't know, they don't own any stock in the business, so does this decision mean that much to them?
No skin in the game.
You'll never get a good independent board member to join your board if you don't give them stock. So that's their compensation.
Hey, are they independent then? But maybe
the company. So one of my board members was the ex-CTO of the VA, right? Peter Levin. And I've got another guy named Stephen Lenseth right now, who's just a phenomenal board member. He's probably one of the best board members I've ever had in terms of networking. He knows every chief innovation officer of every health system in the country almost.
Right.
So, you select them because of who they are and what they can bring to you in terms of knowledge about how to run a business, all the governance issues, and obviously the network acts. You give them stock in the company, and so that's what they're motivated to do. In some cases, in private companies, you give them stock. In more mature companies, you'd also give them stock, and you'd pay them a stipend, right?
Right.
But it's really valuable. It's really valuable.
Might have to take you up on that advice soon enough.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, this was great. So, if a physician works at a big health system and they want to buy Conversa, they just go to conversa.com. Or is it Conversa Health? What is it again?
Conversa Health is a company. Yeah.
Yep.
And so, we're focused typically on large health systems, payers, and pharma as our kind of three, and now employers. So those are kind of our sectors that we're going after. So we've diversified our market sectors. We've diversified our product line. So we're 6 years into this and scaling. We'll triple the business this year. And so, about a third of our business will be outside of health systems. And so we are using partnerships and other means to be able to kind of diversify our product offering and our market sector expansion.
All right, great. Well, thanks for coming on the show. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining us, Wes. Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of Digital Health Entrepreneurship. It was such an honor to have Wes Schell on the show today. And if you like this episode, then I want to recommend you take a look at another episode of ours, episode 29, where Laurence talks about the importance of work-life balance. That episode is found in the description. And so go ahead and listen to that and let us know what you think. We would love to hear from you on what you're enjoying about the show. We'll see you next time.